The air in St. Mary's Hospital in Athens, Ohio, buzzed with a nervous hum, the kind that clings to sterile corridors where hope and fear wrestle in silence. James Carter paced the linoleum floor, his work boots scuffing softly, leaving faint streaks of sawdust from the carpentry shop he'd left an hour ago. His flannel shirt clung to his back, damp with sweat despite the November chill seeping through the hospital windows. His wife, Sarah, was in labor, and the anticipation of meeting their first child, a son they'd hoped to name Daniel, kept his heart hammering. He fiddled with a scrap of cedar in his pocket, imagining the toy plane he'd carved for the boy, its wings smooth under his calloused fingers. Inside the delivery room, the monitors beeped steadily at first, a rhythm James clung to like a prayer. Sarah had been radiant that morning, her brown eyes bright as she teased him about his nervous pacing. "You'll wear a trench in the floor, Jimmy," she'd said, her voice warm despite the pain. They'd planned this moment for years, ever, since they married under the oak tree behind their small clapboard house. Sarah, a part-time librarian with a laugh louder than the church bells on Sunday, had dreamed of reading bedtime stories to their child. James, a carpenter who could turn rough timber into heirloom furniture, promised to build a crib sturdy enough to last generations. But the beep slowed. A nurse hurried past, her face tight. James stopped pacing, his breath catching as the door swung open. Dr. Hargrove emerged, his surgical cap crumpled in his hands. "James," he said, voice low. "I'm so sorry, Sarah. She didn't make it. Complications during delivery. We couldn't." He paused, swallowing. "But your daughters are alive. Twin girls." James's knees buckled. He gripped the wall, the cedar scrap biting into his palm. Daughters. Plural. The word felt foreign, unreal. Sarah gone? The woman who hummed Beatles songs while shelving books, who loved blueberry pie and left sticky notes with poetry on his toolbox, was gone. He shook his head as if denial could rewind the clock. The doctor guided him to a chair, but James barely felt the seat beneath him. Two nurses approached, each cradling a tiny bundle wrapped in pink blankets. "Here they are," one said softly, placing the babies in his trembling arms. They were impossibly small, their faces scrunched, eyes shut tight, identical, perfect. A sob broke from James's throat, raw and jagged. "Sarah," he whispered, tears splashing onto the blankets. "You promised we'd name him Daniel if it was a boy." He kissed each tiny forehead, their skin warm against his lips. "Emma," he murmured to the first, "Olivia," to the second. Names they'd chosen months ago, laughing over dinner. Grief and wonder twisted inside him, a knot he couldn't untangle. But as he held them, their small breaths steady against his chest, a vow took root. "I'll take care of you girls myself," he said, voice cracking. "I swear it. The hospital discharged them 2 days later. James carried Emma and Olivia into a night that felt endless, the November wind biting through his jacket. Their house, a modest 2-bedroom on Maple Street, was quiet without Sarah's laughter. Bills and funeral plans littered the kitchen table like broken promises. A half-finished crib sat in the corner of his workshop, mocking him. Dawn arrived, before sleep did. The twins wailed hungry and James panicked at the empty cans of formula on the counter. He'd never changed a diaper, never warmed a bottle. Sarah was supposed to teach him these things. Bundling the twins under his coat, he drove his battered pickup to the only place he could think of, the community centre where Sarah had taught literacy classes. There he found Mrs. Evelyn Brooks, a retired librarian and lactation consultant who'd known Sarah since college. Her grey curls bounced as she assessed James's frantic state. "You're out of milk already?" she asked, peering at the squirming bundles. Without waiting for an answer, she made calls, her voice sharp but kind. Within hours, she'd organised donor milk from nursing mothers in town. She pressed 2 bottles into James's hands. "These girls are everybody's children now," she said. Her words, simple yet profound, cracked through his despair. Humanity still had light. Back home, James rocked Emma and Olivia, humming Blackbird, Sarah's favorite lullaby. The house felt colder without her, but the twins' breaths warmed his chest. He stitched diapers from old flannel shirts, boiled water in a dented pot, and learned to swaddle by trial and error, cursing when the blankets slipped. Neighbors peeked through the curtains, whispering that a carpenter couldn't raise infants alone. "He'll give them up by spring," one said. James ignored them, fixing a mobile above the crib, scrap pine shaped into stars, strung with fishing line. When exhaustion threatened to drown him, the vow echoed, "I will take care of you." By their 1-month checkup, Emma and Olivia were gaining weight, their cheeks rounding out. The pediatrician, Dr. Patel, raised an eyebrow. "You're doing better than most new parents," she said. James shrugged, too tired to take pride. Townsfolk stopped predicting disaster, though their pity lingered. At night, loneliness crept in. Standing at the nursery doorway, James watched the twins sleep, whispering stories about Sarah, the way she'd dog-ear library books, her secret recipe for blueberry pie, how she died so they could live. He prayed they'd one day understand her sacrifice. For now, all he could offer was steady hands and a father's stubborn heart. 3 months later, Emma discovered her thumb, sucking it with fierce determination. Olivia mastered a shriek that pierced the house whenever Emma got attention. James juggled feedings with furniture orders, carving chair legs while rocking the crib with his foot. One afternoon, sawdust swirling, he collapsed from sheer fatigue, the router clattering to the floor. He woke to Mrs. Brooks shaking him, her face stern. "You need help, James. Pride will bury you faster than grief." She rallied 4 women from the church, retired teachers and mothers, who rotated visits, washing onesies, bringing casseroles, and teaching him to soothe colic cries. James protested, his jaw tight, but their practical love wore him down. Mrs. Brooks arrived daily with donor milk, her eyes soft. "Sarah taught half this town to read," she said. "They're repaying her now." Her words eased the guilt of accepting help. James kept meticulous notes on feeding times, charting ounces like a carpenter measures cuts. The twins grew into chubby toddlers, turning the workshop into a playground. Sawdust became confetti in their curls. Emma's first word was plain, pointing at James's mobile. Olivia's was dada, her tiny hand grabbing his beard. Each milestone fueled his resolve to give them opportunities he'd never had. Education, above all. Sarah had believed in books, in the power of words to lift a life. He'd honor that, but the community's gossip shifted. "A man needs a wife," the church elders said after Sunday service. "Girls need a mother's hand." Widows and single women appeared at the hardware store, praising James's cedar chests and hinting at shared dinners. He smiled politely, heart sealed shut. At night he spoke to Sarah's photo on the mantel, her brown eyes glowing under candlelight. "Am I enough for them?" he asked. "They deserve more than wooden toys." The frame offered no answer, but her painted smile felt like approval. By the twins' 5th birthday, school loomed. James's carpentry business paid the mortgage, but kindergarten fees, books, supplies, field trips stretched him thin. He worked late, sanding tables under a flickering bulb, his stomach growling. The idea of remarrying crept in, not for love, but for partnership. Someone to braid hair, pack lunches, ease the load. Then he met Linda Hayes at a church potluck. A soft-spoken widow, she ran a bakery and doted on Emma and Olivia, bringing them frosted cupcakes. "They're precious," she said, her smile gentle. James hesitated, but her kindness chipped at his walls. Their wedding was simple, held in the churchyard under a sycamore tree. Emma and Olivia, in matching yellow dresses, twirled and giggled, calling Linda Mama Linda. For 6 months the house smelled of fresh bread. Bedtime stories came in 2 voices. James dared to believe fate had granted them a second chance. But on a humid August evening, everything shattered. He returned from the shop, sawdust in his hair, to hear screams from the kitchen. Linda stood over the twins, a wooden spoon raised, red welts blooming on Olivia's arm. "You little brat spilled flour on my new apron," she shouted. Emma cowered behind her sister. James stepped between them, his voice low but shaking. "Touch them again, and you'll answer to me and—" "God," Linda's face twisted. "You think anyone else wants a man stuck with 2 kids?" she spat. By dawn, she'd packed her bags and left, the screen door slamming. The twins clung to James, whimpering. Shame burned, but rage burned hotter. He knelt by their beds at sunrise. "Never again will I risk your safety," he vowed. "You're my everything." The promise, renewed, felt like iron. The screen door's slam echoed in James Carter's ears long after Linda left. The house on Maple Street felt hollow, as if her departure had sucked out the air. Emma and Olivia, barely 5, clung to him that night, their small bodies trembling, under the quilt Sarah had sewn. James rocked them, humming Blackbird until their whimpers faded into sleep. The welts on Olivia's arm, faint but real, burned in his mind. He'd failed to protect them once. He wouldn't again. At dawn, he knelt by their beds, whispering, "You're my everything. No one else comes close." The vow, hardened by betrayal, became his anchor. Athens, Ohio, buzzed with gossip by morning. Neighbors whispered over picket fences. Poor James, fooled by that baker woman. Those girls need a mother, not a carpenter's stubborn pride. James ignored them, focusing on the twins. He cooked lumpy oatmeal, braided their hair with uneven parts, and invented a secret handshake, 3 claps and a nose tap, to make them laugh. Emma giggled, her hazel eyes bright like Sarah's. Olivia, more serious, perfected the nose tap with a dramatic flourish. Their laughter patched the cracks in his heart, but the bills on the kitchen table grew taller. Kindergarten loomed, with fees for books, uniforms, and field trips. His carpentry shop, a 1-room shed behind the house, brought in enough for groceries and the mortgage, but little else. Lumber prices were climbing, and clients haggled over every chair. James worked late, sanding tables under a bare bulb, his stomach growling from skipped dinners. The twins slept in the next room, their soft snores filtering through the wool. He'd pause to check on them, tucking blankets around their shoulders, Sarah's photo watching from the mantel. "Am I doing this right?" he'd ask her, his voice low. The silence answered, but her painted smile urged him on. The church elders, however, were less forgiving. "A man can't live like this, James," Pastor Reynolds said after Sunday service, his hand heavy on James's shoulder. "Find a good woman, for the girls." James nodded politely, but his heart was closed. He'd gambled on Linda and lost. The twins were enough. School started in September, and Emma and Olivia bounced into kindergarten with matching backpacks. Emma drew airplanes on her notebook, dreaming of flying. Olivia dismantled a broken toy car, claiming she'd fix it better. Their teacher, Ms. Callahan, sent notes home. Bright girls, curious minds. James framed the notes beside Sarah's photo, his pride swelling. But the fees stung. A class trip to the Columbus Zoo cost $20 per child, plus lunch. He carved extra cutting boards for the Saturday market, selling them for $10 each. When a client cancelled a dining set order, he skipped his own lunch for a week, hiding it from the twins. They noticed anyway, slipping him half their peanut butter sandwiches. "Dada, you need energy," Olivia said, her brow furrowed. Emma nodded, pushing her crusts across the table. He ate, tears pricking his eyes. The carpentry shop, once his sanctuary, became a battleground. A leaky roof soaked his tools. rust creeping into saw blades. Timber suppliers raised prices again, and a city ordinance demanded costly safety upgrades, new wiring, fire extinguishers. Compliance would eat a year's profit. James pleaded with the inspector, a stern man in a clipboard. "I'm raising 2 girls alone," he said. The man shrugged. "Rules are rules. Pay or close." That night, James spread the closure notice on the kitchen table. Emma and Olivia, now 6, watched him, their crayons stilled. "Dada, is the shop sick?" Emma asked. He forced a smile. "Just needs a rest, sweetheart." The idea of selling the shop felt like amputation. It was his father's before him, its walls etched with decades of sawdust and dreams. But the twins' education demanded sacrifice. Junior high loomed, with textbooks, and lab fees. James visited the county clerk, heart pounding, and listed the property. Gossip exploded. "Foolish man," the market vendor said, handing him change for nails. "Selling your livelihood for girls? They'll marry and leave you." Emma overheard, her small hand tightening in his. Olivia glared at the vendor, silent but fierce. James knelt, meeting their eyes. "You're my future," he said. "Not this shop." The twins, sensing the weight, turned pain into action. They scavenged scrap wood from the yard, hammering together birdhouses. Emma painted them with bright wings, blues and yellows from leftover craft paint. Olivia rigged swiveling bases, her fingers nimble with a screwdriver. They sold them at the Sunday market, earning $15 by noon. "For school," Olivia declared, dropping coins into a jar labeled Sky Fund. James's throat tightened. Their resilience mirrored Sarah's, who'd once sold homemade bookmarks to fund library programs. He signed the sale papers 3 months sure. Later, the buyer's offer covering junior high fees and a year's rent in Columbus, where better schools awaited. On moving day, the twins pressed their palms to the shop's dusty walls. "Thank you for feeding us," Emma whispered. Olivia nodded, her eyes wet. James locked the door, tears falling onto the iron padlock. He walked away, toolbox in one hand, a daughter in each arm. The shop's wooden sign creaked in the wind, a farewell only they heard. Columbus was a shock. The city's noise, honking cars, distant sirens, drowned out the quiet of Athens. They rented 2 cramped rooms behind the Columbus Public Library, close to the twins' new school. James searched for carpentry work, but urban shops wanted credentials he didn't have. A janitor posting at the library caught his eye. Cleaner needed, dawn to noon, modest pay. He applied, showing his scarred palms to the head librarian, Mrs. Evelyn Brooks, who'd followed him from Athens to a new role. "Anyone who respects wood respects books," she said, her grey eyes sharp but kind. "Job's yours." Each morning, James swept marble corridors, polished oak tables, and oiled creaky hinges before the library opened. The scent of paper and ink replaced sawdust, a new kind of forest. He pocketed torn pages to mend at home, muttering, "No story deserves the trash." The twins, now 7, joined him after school, doing homework among the stacks. Librarians slipped them extra textbooks, their eyes soft for the girls who called James Dada with such trust. Family evenings were tight but warm. They shared one pot of mac and cheese, told riddles, and studied under a flickering bulb. Emma traced flight paths on a salvaged atlas, dreaming of planes. Olivia took apart a broken clock, swearing she'd make it tick again. James watched, marveling at how their hunger for knowledge outshone their hunger for food. The city had sharper tongues than Athens. Market vendors scoffed when James haggled over bruised apples. "Where's your wife, man?" one asked. "Taxi." Drivers joked he should rent out the twins for extra cash. Each jab chipped at him, but he stored the pieces, planning to build something better later. One weekend, the school announced a field trip to Port Columbus Airport. The $30 fee per child was impossible. James eyed his toolbox, considering pawnshops. Emma, overhearing his sigh, tugged his sleeve. "Dada, we'll write stories about planes instead." But Mrs. Brooks intervened, quietly paying the fee. "Sarah would have wanted this," she said. On the trip, Emma pressed her nose to the tarmac fence, watching jets roar. Olivia sketched wing flaps, her pencil furious. They returned home, breathless. "I'm going to fly," Emma declared. "I'm going to build planes," Olivia countered. James nodded, pride and fear twisting inside. "Then we'll aim for the sky," he said, knowing the ground beneath him was already cracking. The Columbus apartment, 2 cramped rooms behind the public library, smelled of damp plaster and boiled noodles. James Carter swept the linoleum floor each evening, his broom chasing crumbs and memories of the carpentry shop he'd sold. The twins, Emma and Olivia, now 8, filled the space with chatter and crayons, their laughter a fragile shield against the city's hum. Junior high loomed, and with it, new expenses, textbooks, graphing calculators, lab fees. James's janitor. Salary covered rent and groceries, but every dollar stretched thin, like wood shaved to the breaking point. He patched the twins' sneakers with duct tape, mended their backpacks with fishing line, and took extra shifts scrubbing library stairwells at midnight. Sleep became a luxury, his eyes shadowed but sharp when he looked at his daughters. Emma and Olivia thrived despite the pinch. Emma, with her mother's hazel eyes, devoured science books, sketching jet engines in the margins. Olivia, quieter but fierce, dismantled broken radios from thrift stores, her fingers dancing over wires as she muttered about circuits. Their new school, Franklin Middle, was a step up from Athens. Better teachers, science labs, but the fees stung. James skipped dinners, claiming he'd eaten at work. The twins, too sharp to believe him, slipped extra apples into his lunch bag. "Dada, you need to stay strong," Emma said, her voice firm. Olivia nodded, sliding him a granola bar. He ate, his throat tight, their care both a comfort and a weight. The library became their sanctuary. After school, the twins sprawled among the stacks, Emma reading about aerodynamics, Olivia puzzling over engineering diagrams. Mrs. Evelyn Brooks, the head librarian, watched them with a mother's pride. She'd known Sarah, shared her love of books, and now slipped the girls extra pencils or outdated textbooks. "Your mama would be proud," she told them one evening, her grey curls catching the lamplight. James, mopping nearby, overheard and paused, his chest aching. He wanted to believe it, but doubt gnawed. Was he enough? Could he give them the future Sarah had dreamed of? Community whispers followed them, sharper in the city. At the grocery store, a cashier eyed James's worn jacket. "No wife to help with those girls?" she asked, ringing up discounted bread. A bus driver chuckled. "Twins. Better save for their weddings, not school." James brushed it off, but the words lodged like splinters. The twins heard too, their faces tightening. One night, Emma climbed into his lap, her science book open. "Dada, will I really fly planes someday?" she asked. Olivia, tinkering with a broken flashlight, looked up. "And build them." James pulled them close. "You'll both touch the sky," he said, voice steady despite the cracks beneath him. "I'll make sure of it." High school brought new pressures. Emma and Olivia, now 13, entered Westview High, a magnet school with a strong STEM program. Tuition was partially covered by a district grant, but extras, lab kits, field trips, piled up. James took weekend cleaning jobs at office buildings, his hands raw from bleach. One rainy evening, a coughing fit stopped him mid-shift, his chest tight. He ignored it, but the cough lingered, joined by dizziness. At a free clinic, a doctor diagnosed mild hypertension. "Stress and overwork," she said, prescribing pills he couldn't afford. He hid the diagnosis, swallowing pride with black coffee. The twins, sensing his strain, stepped up. They volunteered at church bake sales, saving quarters in a jar labelled Sky Fund. Emma painted posters for the sales, her designs bold with soaring planes. Olivia fixed neighbours' broken toasters, earning $5 here, $10 there. Their report cards sparkled. Emma aced physics, Olivia topped math, but the fees kept climbing. A chemistry lab contribution was $50 per girl. James eyed his toolbox, the last relic of his carpentry days. He walked to a pawn shop, the chisels clinking in his bag. The clerk offered $200, a fraction of their worth. James hesitated, sawdust on his cheeks mixing with tears. He took the cash, whispering, "For you girls." Mrs. Brooks noticed his gaunt face at work. "James, you're fading," she said, her voice sharp but kind. He confessed the pawn shop visit, the mounting bills. She didn't scold. Instead, she organized a library fundraiser, citing his years of quiet service. Staff donated, patrons pitched in, even the grumpy security guard tossed $20 into the jar. Within weeks, they raised enough for his meds and 3 months' rent. James protested, his pride bruised, but Mrs. Brooks was firm. "You've mended our books. Let us mend you." He surrendered, gratitude outweighing shame. The twins' sophomore year brought a turning point. Westview announced a scholarship contest for STEM students, requiring essays titled "Why My Background Fuels My Dreams." Emma wrote about Sarah's absence, how library books became her mother, and how watching planes at the airport sparked her pilot dreams. "My father's mop built my wings," she ended. Olivia described turning birdhouses into lessons on talk, her father's sacrifices fueling her engineering passion. "Every nail he sold was a blueprint for my future," she wrote. Their raw honesty won partial scholarships covering half their tuition. The rest, James scraped together, cleaning extra offices on Sundays. One spring, the school hosted a career fair. A retired pilot, Captain Reynolds, spoke about aviation. Emma peppered him with questions about cockpit ergonomics, her eyes blazing. Impressed, he offered mentorship and access to a flight simulator at a local community college. Olivia, meanwhile, met an aerospace engineer who admired her sketches of wing flaps. He invited her to a weekend workshop at Ohio State University, where she built a model drone. The twins returned home, voices overlapping. "Dada, I flew a simulator," Emma said. "I made a drone move," Olivia added. James danced with them in the tiny kitchen, a broom his partner, tears streaking his smile. "God hears persistent knocks," he said, hugging them tight, but hardship lingered. One winter, the apartment's heat failed and rent spiked. James slept on a library storeroom cot to save money, telling the twins he was upgrading the place. They saw through the lie, but respected his pride. During a late shift, exhaustion made him slip on wet marble, spraining his back. Sick. Leave meant lost wages. Bedridden, he worried about eviction. The twins pooled cafeteria tips, walked dogs for professors, and sent $50 home. Emma wrote him notes. Pressure turns rough stones into smooth ones. Olivia taped a fixed radio to his bedside, its static hum a small victory. James read the notes, listened to the radio, and clung to their mantra. One more step. By junior year, the twins ranked top 5 in their class. Emma logged hours in the flight simulator, her hands steady on the yoke. Olivia won a school contest, with a prototype propeller, earning $100. They called James, their voices bright over the library's payphone. "We're going to make it, Dada," Emma said. He nodded, unable to speak, the receiver trembling. That night, he journaled. Spilled milk led to donor mothers, a sold shop led to scholarships, pain carves space for blessings. The pattern was clear, but the path remained steep. The Columbus apartment, a shoebox behind the public library, groaned under the weight of ambition. James Carter, now 46, swept its linoleum floor with a broom worn to bristles, his back aching from a sprain that never fully healed. The twins, Emma and Olivia, were 17, their senior year at Westview High, a whirlwind of college applications and final exams. The Sky Fund jar, once filled with bake sale quarters, now held crumpled scholarship letters and dreams too big for their cramped rooms. Emma, with her pilot's focus, aced physics, her notebook filled with cockpit diagrams. Olivia, her hands stained with motor oil, topped engineering classes, her latest project a model turbine that hummed on their shared desk. James watched them study under a flickering bulb, pride swelling despite the bills piling up like sawdust. Senior, year tuition nearly broke them. Textbooks cost $200 each, uniforms frayed at the seams, and a mandatory robotics lab fee loomed at $75 per girl. James patched their shoes with leather scraps, mended their clothes until the stitches groaned, and took extra cleaning shifts, scrubbing graffiti from library stairwells at 2 a.m. His hypertension pills sat half-used, too expensive to refill. The twins noticed his hollow cheeks, his cough that lingered through winter. They volunteered at the church food pantry, saving coins in a tin labeled college fund. Emma sold hand-painted bookmarks, planes soaring across them. Olivia fixed neighbors' broken lamps, her toolbox a smaller echo of James's. "We'll help, Dada," Emma said, slipping $10 into his wallet. Olivia nodded, her jaw set. "You're not alone." James hugged them, his calloused hands trembling, their strength both a lifeline and a mirror of his own stubborn heart. The apartment's rent jumped in January, a notice taped to the door like a slap. James couldn't pay. He stored their belongings in a church basement and slept on a library storeroom cot, telling the twins he was renovating. They saw through the lie, their eyes sharp but silent. One evening, exhaustion betrayed him. Polishing a library banister, he nodded off, the buffer jerking into a shelf. Books crashed, a rare first-edition poetry collection landing in soapy water. Mrs. Evelyn Brooks, the head librarian, gasped. "James, your health's failing," she said, her voice low. He confessed the eviction threat, the pawned toolbox, the skipped meds. Instead of firing him, she rallied the staff. "He's one of us," she told them. Librarians donated, patrons mailed checks, and within weeks they raised $2,000 for his medical bills and a new lease. James protested, his pride raw. "You mended our books," Mrs. Brooks said. "Let us mend your life." During recovery, James audited free evening classes at the library on computer-aided design, his fingers clumsy on the keyboard, but eager. "Old dogs learn new tricks," he told the twins, who cheered him via video calls. Emma supervised his physical therapy stretches, her voice firm. "Straight back, Dada." Olivia emailed him chair designs, ergonomic curves to ease his sprain. Their bond grew thicker than misfortune, a fortress of 3 against the city's sharp edges. At Westview High, the twins shone. Emma aced her instrument flight check in the community college simulator, logging a flawless takeoff and landing. Captain Reynolds, her mentor, clapped her shoulder. "You're born for this," he said. Olivia unveiled her capstone project, an AI-assisted diagnostics module for small aircraft, its code elegant and precise. Judges gave her top honors, and a local aerospace firm, Aerotech, offered a $500 prize. She sent half to James, who used it for his first health insurance in years. "You're building my future too," he told her, his voice thick over the phone. College admission letters arrived in spring. Emma secured a spot at Emerald Air Academy for aviation, Olivia at Ohio State for aerospace engineering. The tuition, figures $20,000 each, even with scholarships, turned excitement to panic. James stared at his toolbox, now just a memory in the pawn shop. He returned, offering his father's old hand plane, its blade worn but sharp. The clerk smirked, tossing $150 on the counter. James took it, tears masked by the shop's dust. That evening, He laid the cash before the twins. "College happens," he said, his voice firm. They wept, not from joy but from the weight of his sacrifice. "Dada, we'll pay you back," Emma whispered. Olivia nodded, her fist clenched. "Every cent." The community's tone shifted. Neighbors who once mocked James now whispered admiration. "Those girls are going places," a grocer said, slipping apples into their bag. But skeptics lingered, sending letters. A man without assets is no man. James burned them in the apartment sink, the smoke curling like defiance. The twins worked weekends, wiping library windows for pocket money. Strangers mistook them for janitors. James introduced them proudly. "My pilot and my engineer." Some laughed, others slipped them bus fare. By September, they scraped together first semester fees. On move-in day, James borrowed a library cart to haul their suitcases and second-hand textbooks across campus. Students in sleek cars stared. The twins waved, undaunted. Before leaving, James knelt on the dorm lawn, praying aloud, "God, swap my strength for their success." The elevator doors closed, taking his daughters upward. Walking home, Columbus's lights blurred, and for the first time since Sarah's death, James felt both emptied and full. University life dazzled and bruised. Emma wrestled advanced physics, her nights spent on equations. Olivia tackled calculus and machine design, her hands smudged with graphite. They rode packed buses at dawn, balancing notes on their laps, and cleaned cafeteria trays at night, saving leftover soup for James. He, now 47, felt his muscles protest each mop stroke. Yet he timed breaks to call them, reciting quotes scribbled on napkins. "Pressure turns rough stones into smooth ones." They echoed it before exams, their voices steady over crackling lines. Mid-semester, Olivia's laptop crashed, wiping a crucial coding project. A replacement was impossible. She borrowed lab computers at midnight, dodging security guards. Emma stayed up, solving practice problems by flashlight to free the desk for her sister. Exhaustion knocked, but they barred the door. At a campus symposium, Emma impressed a visiting pilot with her grasp of navigation systems. He offered simulator access and a recommendation to Skyway Airlines' internship program. Olivia, meanwhile, won a design contest with adjustable winglets for small planes, the $1,000 prize covering next month's rent. They called James, their voices trembling with relief. He danced in the library corridor, broom spinning, tears streaking his grin. "God hears persistent knocks," he whispered, the words a prayer. But hardship struck again. James slipped on, wet marble, his back flaring. Bedridden for a week, he worried about rent. The twins sent cafeteria tips and dog-walking earnings, $75 in crumpled bills. Emma's note read, "One more step, Dada." By semester's end, both girls ranked top 5 in their cohorts. Dean's lists posted, and whispers turned to awe, the cleaners' twins defying the odds. They returned home for break, high-fiving over instant noodles. Outside, fireworks crackled for the university's Founders' Day, but inside, their triumph burned brighter, a quiet faith stronger than circumstance. The Columbus Public Library, with its marble corridors and oak tables, had been James Carter's second home for nearly a decade. At 48, his hands, once nimble with chisels, now gripped a mop with a familiar ache. The twins, Emma and Olivia, were in their second year of college, Emma at Emerald Air Academy, training to be a pilot, and Olivia at Ohio State, studying aerospace engineering. Their dorm room, a shared space cluttered with textbooks and model planes, was a world away from the cramped apartment behind the library. James felt the distance in his bones, but their weekly calls, Emma's voice bright with simulator stories, Olivia's steady with equations, kept him grounded. He'd recite his napkin-scribbled mantra, "Pressure turns rough stones into smooth ones." They'd echo it back, their laughter crackling through the library's payphone. College stretched their finances to the breaking point. Scholarships covered half the twins' tuition, but living expenses, rent, bus passes, lab materials, gnawed at James's janitor salary. He skipped breakfasts, patched his boots with duct tape, and worked extra shifts cleaning office buildings on weekends. His hypertension flared, the pills a constant expense. The twins, now 19, worked part-time at a campus cafeteria, saving soup in thermoses for James. "Dada, you need to eat," Emma said, handing him a container during a visit. Olivia slipped him $20 from her tips. "For your meds," she said, her eyes sharp. He accepted, his pride softened by their care, but the weight of their sacrifices mirrored his own. The library remained their anchor. Mrs. Evelyn Brooks, the head librarian, watched over the family like a guardian. She'd slip Emma aviation manuals and Olivia engineering journals, her grey curls bouncing as she whispered, "For Sarah's girls." James, mopping nearby, would nod, his throat tight. But the library faced budget cuts, and James's contract was set to end. "Fiscal restructuring," the memo read. He accepted it quietly. Seasons change, he thought. Unknown to him, Mrs. Brooks had other plans. She sent his resume, detailing his carpentry skills and years of quiet service, to Artisan Gallery, a boutique furniture firm in downtown Columbus. Days later, they called. "We need a consultant for custom pieces," the manager said. "Your story's as impressive as your work." The pay, triple his janitor salary, felt like a miracle. James told the twins over a crackling call, their scream so loud a library patron shushed him. "Dada's back in business!" Emma cheered. Olivia calculated, 2 paychecks and we clear your bills. James started at Artisan Gallery in spring, designing walnut desks for luxury hotels. His hands, scarred from years of labor, found joy in sketching again, the pencil a softer tool than a mop. The twins visited, marveling at his workshop, its air thick with sawdust. Emma traced a desk's curve. "Like your old shop," she said. Olivia nodded, holding a sanded plank, "but fancier." James grinned, his heart full. He enrolled in evening business courses, learning supply chain basics. "Education never stops," he told his new apprentices, echoing advice he'd given the twins. At college, the twins soared. Emma secured a competitive internship with Skyway Airlines, one of 2 slots in a regional program. She'd competed against students with family ties to the industry, her application bolstered by Captain Reynolds's recommendation. On selection day, she found her name atop the list, collapsing into Olivia's arms. "Dada's mop bought me wings," she sobbed. Olivia, meanwhile, extended her aerotech internship after her winglet design impressed supervisors. They offered a modest stipend, half of which she sent to James for his insurance. "You're not allowed to get sick," she said, her voice firm but warm. James journaled that night. Spilled milk led to donor mothers. A pawned toolbox led to internships. Pain carves blessings, one splinter at a time. Their success drew attention. A local paper ran a feature, "Cleaners' Twins Defy Odds in STEM." The article mentioned James's sacrifices, sparking murmurs of respect. But old wounds resurfaced when Linda Hayes, the stepmother who'd left a decade ago, appeared at Artisan Gallery. Her face was gaunt, her clothes worn. "My second husband lost everything," she said, voice low. "I need work." The staff bristled, remembering her cruelty to the twins. James offered her tea, his hand steady. Over steaming cups, she apologized. "I was bitter, drowning in my own pain," she said. "I hurt your girls." Anger stirred in James, but he recalled sleepless nights sanding forgiveness into wood. He arranged a small clerical contract reporting to HR, not him. "Mercy doesn't erase memory," he told the twins that evening. Olivia clenched her jaw. Emma sighed, quoting Psalmy "'23 restoreth my soul," they agreed. Mercy freed the heart. The twins' third year blurred into dissertations and late-night study sessions. Emma logged simulator hours, her landings precise. Olivia developed an AI diagnostics module for cockpit systems, earning a patent. Application. Their mantra, "one more step," kept anxiety at bay. James, now healthier, leaned on library colleagues who monitored his diet, slipping him fruit when he forgot to eat. A month before finals, his chest tightened again, a mild hypertension flare. The twins offered to drop classes or cell phones. He forbade it, compromising on their weekly meal prep deliveries, casseroles in Tupperware labeled with Sharpie hearts. Graduation loomed, and the library staff planned a surprise retirement party for James, his janitor days officially ending. They didn't know about his new job, but Mrs. Brooks did, her smile sly. She'd orchestrated it all. At the party, colleagues shared stories of James's quiet fixes. Shelves he'd repaired, pages he'd taped. He blushed, deflecting praise. The twins, on break, helped decorate, stringing paper planes across the room. Word of their achievements spread. Media requested interviews. The twins declined, citing finals, but their legend grew. The cleaners, daughters bound for the sky. Graduation day dawned bright, the stadium lights shimmering on rows of caps. James arrived early, his Sunday suit ironed to crisp edges, a second-hand camera around his neck. He'd learned basic photography on YouTube, determined to capture every moment. When Emma crossed the stage, he yelled, "That's my pilot!" sparking laughter in the stands. Olivia followed, her tassel swinging, blowing a kiss. James tried to snap photos, but tears blurred the viewfinder. A stranger offered to take pictures, her smile kind. After the ceremony, the twins pulled him to a Skyway Airlines training jet parked for demonstrations. Emma, now a first officer trainee, invited him into the cockpit. He traced the switches, whispering, "I used to carve toy planes from scrap." She replied, "Your hands built this future too." Olivia handed him a gift, a miniature wooden plane carved from walnut scraps. "For your desk at Artisan," she said. He cradled it, his eyes wet. That evening, over fried chicken at a roadside diner, the twins announced their plan. A scholarship fund called Sarah's Wings for girls in STEM. They'd saved internship stipends, and James pledged his first Artisan paycheck. The fund would start small, but its mission was clear: clear the runway for others. James raised a glass of iced tea. "To your mother," he said, "and every unseen ally." The twins clinked their glasses, their eyes bright. Outside, a jet roared overhead, its red beacon tracing an arc. James exhaled, the vow not just surviving but taking flight. The Artisan Gallery workshop in downtown Columbus hummed with the scent of walnut and varnish, a familiar comfort for James Carter at 50. His hands, scarred from years of carpentry and janitorial work, now sketched designs for hotel lobbies, each curve a testament to his resilience. The twins, Emma and Olivia, were 23, their careers soaring like the jets they'd dreamed of as children. Emma, a first officer with Skyway Airlines, piloted regional flights, her voice steady over cockpit radios. Olivia, a lead engineer at Aerotech, had patented an AI diagnostics module, her designs cutting aircraft fuel use by 15%. Their dorm days were gone, replaced by apartments paid for with their own salaries, but they called James nightly, their voices weaving a thread back to the cramped apartment behind the Columbus Public Library. James's new life felt surreal. His consultant role at Artisan tripled his income, letting him buy health insurance and a used pickup. He trained apprentices, sharing carpentry tricks and life lessons. Sacrifice builds more than furniture. Evenings, he studied supply, chain logistics at a community college, his pencil slow but determined. "Education never stops," he told his apprentices. echoing words he'd given Emma and Olivia.
The twins' Sarah's Wings scholarship, funded by their stipends and his first paycheck, had grown, sponsoring 5 girls in STEM programs across Ohio. Its mission, clearing runways for dreams, drew donations after a viral news clip
About the twins' journey aired on local TV. "A cleaner's daughters touched the sky," the anchor said, showing James cheering at their graduation. But the twins had bigger plans. One Saturday, they drove James to a gated suburb outside Columbus, claiming they were scoping a furniture job. He leaned back in their sedan, joking about their fancy wheels. They stopped before a cream-colored house, its porch lined with cedar planters. "Welcome home, Dada," Olivia said, her voice steady but soft. Emma handed him a key, a gold plaque beside the door reading Carter House. James froze, his breath catching. Inside, the living room held portraits. Sarah's smile, the twins at every age, his old carpentry license framed beside a photo of their Athens shop. Tears dripped onto the polished oak floor. "I can't accept this," he rasped, his voice thick. Emma countered. "You slept on a storeroom cot for our textbooks. Accept this roof because we can." Olivia nodded, her eyes wet. "You built our future. We're building yours." He surrendered, embracing them until laughter replaced sobs. The housewarming was a feast of fried chicken, cornbread and blueberry pie, Sarah's favorite. Librarians, donor mothers from Athens, artisan apprentices, and even skeptics who'd once mocked James filled the backyard. Some apologized, their voices low. Others stood silent, humbled by a father's faith. James raised a glass of sweet tea. "To Sarah," he said, "and every hand that lifted us." The twins clinked their glasses, Emma whispering, "To unseen allies." That night on the porch, James watched city lights flicker like fireflies. A jet's contrail streaked above, maybe Emma's, maybe not. The sky felt personal, a canvas of their shared vow. The twins turned outward, their ambitions growing. They pitched a community center in Athens, combining a library and STEM lab for rural kids. Funding came from their salaries, James's profits, and donations sparked by the viral clip. The county granted land, and construction began. James oversaw carpentry, designing desks wide enough for left-handed students, a detail often ignored. Emma taught weekend aviation workshops, kids crafting paper planes that soared over the lot. Olivia installed solar panels explaining wattage in simple terms. Opening day drew crowds. The building, named Sarah Carter Memorial Center, featured a ribbon cutting with a Skyway Airlines flyover, Emma at the controls. Children screamed, elders wept. James spoke. "They called investing in girls a waste. Today, girls invest in everyone." Applause roared, newspapers praising the twins, who redirected credit to Mrs. Brooks, donor mothers, and early supporters, each given plaques. The center's impact was swift. Enrollment doubled, especially among girls, and the lab sparked dreams of coding and flight. One child, Amina, declared she'd be a pilot engineer, inspired by both sisters. The vow's ripple reached beyond Athens, touching lives James would never meet. But old scars resurfaced. Linda Hayes, their former stepmother, visited the center's opening, her face lined, her hands empty. "I'm sorry," she whispered. To James, her second marriage dissolved, her savings gone. Staff glared, but James offered coffee. "Bitterness hurts the holder most," he said, recalling nights sanding forgiveness into wood. He gave her a part-time role cataloguing books. Far from him, the twins, informed later, hesitated. Emma sighed, quoting Psalm 23. Olivia nodded, jaw tight. "Mercy frees us," they agreed, letting go of chains. Years rolled into quiet triumphs. Emma earned captain status, flying international routes, collecting postcards from cities she'd traced on library maps. "Dada, we made it," she whispered after each landing. Olivia led a team designing lightweight fuselages, her work saving airlines millions. Their foundation sponsored dozens of girls nationwide. Sarah's Wings, a beacon for STEM dreamers. On the anniversary of Sarah's death, the family visited her grave in Athens. James, grey-haired but upright, placed cedar shavings shaped like wings on the headstone. The twins read letters to their mother, describing first flights, patents, the center's humming labs. Wind rustled the pines, a soft applause. Back in Columbus, they visited the donor milk program, now expanded with their donations. A plaque listed early donors, including mothers who'd fed the twins. Emma spoke to staff. "You saved us drop by drop. We fly because you believed." Nurses wiped tears, cameras clicked. At home, on the porch, James mused. Life carved me into a better man. Olivia leaned on his shoulder. And us into women who carry your mark. Stars emerged, glittering above the house as they had above their leaking Athens roof. The vow had outgrown its maker, shining on countless paths. On the center's 20th anniversary, dignitaries gathered for an expansion unveiling. James, 70, walked with a cane Olivia had carved, its handle etched with planes. A choir of children sang A Father's Promise, lyrics Emma wrote on a transatlantic layover. Amina, now 15, tugged James's sleeve. "I'm studying aerospace, sir, to help Captain Emma." He knelt, knees creaking. "Aim higher than the clouds, child." A photographer caught the moment, later headlined as Faith in Flight. That evening, the house filled with librarians, pilots, engineers, and former skeptics. James clinked a glass. "Love never depreciates," he said. "Thank you for proving it." The twins unveiled a documentary, Sarah's Wings, set to screen, in schools worldwide. James watched the trailer, sawdust, library halls, runways, his eyes wet. "Every child's a runway," he told the room. "Clear the debris, and they'll soar." Alone on the porch, he whispered to the stars, "Sarah, our girls fly higher than we dreamed." A jet glimmered, maybe Emma's, maybe not. Its trail traced a signature across the sky, proof that vows kept with love defy gravity forever.